Hello, everyone. Welcome you to Aurora. So in today's session, I'm going to discuss a very interesting short story. That's The Tower by Marghanita Laski. So first, let's have a look at the writer's background. So Marghanita Laski was a feminist writer. She was a left-wing author. And most importantly, she was an English novelist. And most of her writing addressed the class barriers and the gender issues that existed in the society at that time. So she often wrote for feminist movements because it was a time when women were really pursuing equal rights in a patriarchal society, because the women were the highly submissive, the highly passive victims of the male dominative society that existed in Laski's contemporary society. So even in this story is influenced by such movements and certain issues that prevail at that time. Well, so having a look at the setting, you can call The Tower a kind of an eerie, powerful story. And it's written in the third-person narrative, probably by an unnamed narrator. And the writer is using flashbacks, dialogues, and even giving a glimpse into the main character, that's Caroline's mind. The readers are probably treated as steady observers of a building peril. The author, once again, I want to tell you that Laski is known for portraying her eloquence through simple vocabulary and straightforward structure. And also you will notice that the flow of the story gives it a haunting tone, which actually draws the readers in. And just to have a look at the themes of the story before we go deep into the discussion, it is about the control, dependency, fear, and one's desire for freedom. However, the patriarchy is the key theme of this short story. And it's represented in a very subtle way through dialogues and interactions. And by doing so, it depicts how such patriarchal elements have woven itself into this unexplained norm of society. However, Laski's she employs symbolism, alliteration, and even certain imagery in this short story. She also foreshadows and compares to create suspense. So especially foreshadowing becomes an important literary technique that she employs in this short story, especially through certain paintings, certain settings, and even the tower itself is a symbol. It's a symbol of sacrifice, right? So everything is creating suspense, anxiety, builds up tension, right? So before the story begins, Laski provides a brief context to the tower, and it's called the Tower of Sacrifice, and it contains 470 steps. Now, the very mention of the number of steps acts as a hint of what is to come, and especially you will notice why this number of steps is interesting in the end of the story. It's only after finishing the story that its importance in the context will really dawn upon the reader. However, once the main plot starts, we are able to see elements of Caroline's desire for freedom immediately, especially when it says, triumphantly, Caroline lifted her finger from the fine italic type. So this shows, this triumph indicates that she has overcome an opposition or has done something she was unable to do in the past. In this case, it's to venture out alone and sightsee, based on her own wishes. And also further, she plans her day using the guidebook that Neville was always urging her to read, which is the first sign of the husband's dominance over the wife and her wish to contribute to this hoard of culture. It shows her longing for independence. And also the theme of control is evident in Neville's control over her life because it's mentioned in quite a few times. For example, when she prepared an itinerary during their past Florence trip, he brushed it off, calling her an ordinary tourist. So this sparked some insecurity in her because she did not want to seem ordinary or uneducated. So Neville constantly put her down, attempts to show off his own knowledge, and takes her to places to perhaps exhibit his rich connections. It seems that actually Caroline has no choice but to comply because he would not accept anything else. So Caroline had no freedom to choose her own plans. And even during their present Florence trip, she plans her day around his business meetings. So she's completely dependent on him. And he clearly believes himself to be, more learned and superior, which greatly irks her. She wants to show him her worth and free herself from his control. And also the flashback she has to the portraits when she sees the name of the tower is foreshadowing the events to come. The portraits are described using imagery and they symbolize a warning. Especially Joanna died as an 18-year-old girl, apparently being lost or damned. So that's a very important word here, the word damned or even lost. While Niccolo, who's known to be her husband, was never spoken about because he dabbled in black magic. So perhaps some of the elements in this story would remind you of Dr. Heidegger's experiment. However, the fact that Caroline felt uncomfortable on seeing this picture of Fermano's picture before knowing about the tower named after him shows at the larger spell she will fall prey to. Because when Neville says that Joanna seems similar to Caroline, that's also foreshadowing that she will meet the same fate. So this is where Laski brings in a comparison between Joanna and Caroline. They are both young, and it may be assumed that Joanna was bound into a marriage with a domineering husband. Because Joanna's death being named as lost or damned gives no exact explanation as to how she died. Therefore, it may be believed that she ended up trapped in the tower the same way Caroline did. Furthermore, the mention of black magic in relation to Niccolo may signify that he had cursed the tower. It's also important to note that the tower is called the Tower of Sacrifice, as I told you before. Probably readers may wonder why and what it is used for, and it's never explained in the book. But from snippets such as, Caroline wanting to throw herself off the top of the tower to get down, it may be a sacrifice of life, that suicidal feeling she gets time to time as she's climbing down, perhaps has something to do with this spell, which is probably, inhaling and exhaling in this castle, in this tower. Because the tower itself symbolizes the patriarchal nature of society, especially in marriage, And such representation is also called a phallic symbol. Because this assumed, in one way, a tower is shaped, and it has a particular shape which might resemble a male sexual organ. The word phallic has that particular meaning. So that's why you call it a phallic image or a symbol. It shows something manly, something to do with the males. And also this assumed black magic symbolizes the control men have over women. The casting of the dark spell could be similar to some of the words and the demands of men, which may use to limit their wives from attaining true freedom. And also when Caroline reaches crossroads, she decides to go towards the tower rather than she goes home safely. Because at this moment of hesitation, there is something that keeps on telling her to move forward, although she knows that she ought to go home. So there are two voices in her, one asking her to climb up the tower and the other asking her to be safe at home. But what she truly wants is to prove to herself and to Neville that she is capable. Because it's the strength of this desire for independence that spurs her on, despite the warning voices and uneasy feelings she gets time to time. And also, you need to notice that the tower is surrounded by the barren land of a destroyed village. This is yet another foreshadowing, because the lifelessness of the surrounding land also represents most probable result of somebody who tries to climb the tower, ends up lifeless. And also, if you look at each step that she takes up the narrow, rickety stairs is a step to prove herself, but probably, we may liken the path up the tower to a social gender ladder of sorts. She sees her journey up the tower as one up the ladder as well, right? So her perseverance is not only from having come so far on the climb, but having come so far in her determination to display her potential and equality to that of her husband's. So there are breaks in the railing which represent uncertainty. These railings are representing unpredictability, the obstacles. There's probably a higher chance that she might get lost. So the way she ignores the voice in her head that urges her to turn around and also is warning her about her safety shows that she's not willing to give up. Because at that point, turning around would be equivalent to accepting defeat against her husband. You can see that she is determined to reach the top of the tower. The top of the tower is equal to top of power. It's the peak of equality. So proving that she can climb the tower and reach the top will be equal to that she has been equal with her husband. So women seeking for equality. And also, when she reaches the top, unfortunately, there is no beautiful view, right? And also, she hopes to see a lovely view corresponds to her hope, for a change and a brighter future. But all she encounters is just, the bleak sky, which represents hopelessness, the broken railing, which is just a dead end. No matter how much effort she puts into climbing to the top of the gender ladder, there is no light at the end of the tunnel. It also highlights the low chances that Neville's attitude will stop overpowering her, or rather, the society's attitude towards women would not really change. And also it symbolizes the unfortunate, unchanging nature of the society in terms of its treatment towards women. Let's move ahead. So it is then that she realizes there is no other way down the tower than the way she came up. Here we see the theme of fear. She shakes and is paralyzed with terror, even considering throwing herself off the tower, right? Especially if you look at her descent is in the dark. It's more terrible and nerve-wracking than her climb. And her remorseless tally of steps stirs suspense and anxiety within the readers. And when the count of steps in her descent is more than that of her ascent, the readers become aware that Caroline has fallen to an unfortunate fate, because she counts up to 500 and so on. But actually the tower consists of around 470 steps. So she is descending more than she has ascended. And that also is some sort of it has already been foreshadowed, right? It's unknown what happened to her. Did she fall off and die? Yeah. Is it the tower that is truly cursed with black magic, perhaps leading her into a never-ending path of stairs, something like a labyrinth? Or there are many questions for the reader. Did she get lost in the dark of the night? This eerie conclusion of a haunting count of the wrong number of stairs really confirms to the readers Caroline's hopeless end. The only alternative to her rebellion and demand for independence was a miserable destiny, which is, probably reflected in the words lost or damned, just like Giovanna. So if you really look at the overall story, you can see that Laski is trying to address the existing issues, the challenges, the problems, and also the mental frustration, the suffering the women had to go through in the society at that time. Sometimes you can, apply this to certain modern situations as well. This has been more like a very global, a very universal problem everywhere in the society. Even if you look at the Western part of the world and the Oriental part of the world, and also if you think about African continent, you will see that these kind of things happen everywhere. The male domination and also the submissiveness of women, the passive victimization of women. Actually, this short story is touching on this theme in a very subtle manner. It does not directly and harshly communicate to you these matters. It's just a woman who's trying to prove to herself and to her husband that she can really complete her cultural excursion or do something adventurous, but there is a lot of, meaning lying underneath. That's what you need to dig down to and try to unravel the feminist aspects of this short story, and also how the female passiveness and their urgency and their eagerness to get out of it, to escape from this trap, this entrapment. So there is this idea of liberation, but the moment you think that she is liberated and she will be liberated, we see that she is eternally doomed. So that also shows it's not very easy for a woman who grows up and lives in a patriarchal context or a society to easily liberate her or to escape the system, escape the social structure. So that once again shows the inescapability of women from some social hazards. So I want you to think about this short story. Furthermore, try to think in terms of what really happens to Caroline at the end, and how is Niccolo, Giovanna are symbolically important in this story. And just think in terms of whether Caroline's husband, Neville, is just an individual representation, or does he represent most of the men who live in the society or who used to live in that society? So I hope that this little discussion enlighten you on certain aspects of the short story. So I'll see you with another video. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. Yes, I wish you a very happy day then. Take care and bless you.